Our dear brother Assad from Arabic Unlocked. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
عليك السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
How are you today, Akhi?
Alhamdulillah, very good. Yourself?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very well, thank you. I know that you did a Umrah fairly recently, right? Or maybe it wasn't very recently now. Maybe it was a long time ago. I have it in my head that it feels recent anyway.
Yeah, it was. So recently I did go with my mother just in December, so a couple of weeks ago, alhamdulillah.
Right, okay, alhamdulillah. I remember before I moved out here to Somalia, I remember you mentioning you were going to make Umrah, but that might have been a previous time because time, subhanAllah, goes so quickly, doesn't it? That might have been ages ago by now.
Yeah, that was last March. I was actually there last March as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is, alhamdulillah, one of the blessings of this new tourist visa that they've launched.
Right.
Is that it's a lot easier to go to Saudi now in general and to make Umrah.
Okay.
So I had the visa from March, and then come December, the visa was still valid. So, and my mom was off on school holidays, so I just thought I'll take her with me, alhamdulillah.
Oh, so it's like a multi-entry visa.
Multi-entry. So you're allowed to be in the country, as far as I know, for 3 months in total, with as many entries and exits as you want.
Throughout what time period? Like you can spend
throughout a 12-month period.
Oh,
so
I
after
see.
12
I
months,
see.
you need to renew the visa.
Right, subhanallah. I had no idea. I didn't know it was that good. That's so good, mashallah.
Yeah, so it's tempting. Like even now, I'm thinking I've still got 3 months left on the visa. It's tempting to just jump on a flight and go again.
Yeah. Well, we really want to do Umrah this year, inshallah. With moving to Somalia, there's big costs with like the flights out here. Flights here are really expensive from the UK and anywhere else, but we'll see how it goes. We'd really like to, because I studied Arabic in Palestine as part of my degree. I was in Palestine for a year, so I've had like Israeli stamps all over my passport, and I haven't been able to go to a lot of places. That's been a mushkila for me, but inshallah khair, that's some good information even for Arabic students. It's a lot of our audience about the tourist visa. I've heard of people being denied it though. Like, are there quite strict conditions for it?
I don't know. I mean, I've also heard it's rare cases. So basically, you just apply online, and I don't know what the exact process is on the back end, but it comes back very quickly. So I don't know if they have an algorithm in place or something. They might have a quota in terms of how many they issue in a certain month or something. But as far as I know, it's quite a high approval rating, but it might again depend on where you're applying from and what your nationality is and that kind of thing.
What does it cost?
In Riyal, I can't remember. I think it was, I don't want to say the wrong number. I think it was 290 or something, but it came to roughly $100, £100, that kind of region.
That's good, isn't it? That's good. So what is the benefit of a because there are specific Umrah visas, aren't there?
There are. The Umrah visa you'd normally get if you're going with a group. They'd require you to get an Umrah visa. There were, to be honest, in the past, so with the Umrah visa, it was a lot more limited. You could only go Mecca, Medina on that visa. It was a lot shorter in terms of time. Now I think the only difference is very recently they've changed the rules. So you could bring Zamzam water back with the tourist visa. Now I think they're only allowing it with the Umrah visa. That's the only difference I know of.
That makes sense. Okay, because you think that there would be some sort of difference, that they need to make it so that there's some sort of benefit to an Umrah visa. That's good to know. So I think so the way that I first heard about you, and I think most of my audience will know about you as well, is from Facebook ads and Instagram ads. I think you do that stuff really well, mashallah. And like I remember, I'm not sure if it's still ongoing, but crowdfunding campaigns you have as well for this app that you have. I have it on my phone actually. I have Arabic Unlocked on my phone. So I just want to know a little bit about what is Arabic Unlocked. How long has it been running for, and what is it for?
It's a good question. It's a broad question. I'll try and answer it in the most concise way. But basically, so Arabic Unlocked kind of came off the back of me first learning Arabic and struggling in terms of my studies to find good resources in the English language that were kind of up to date and kind of ticked all the boxes that I was looking for. And then when I transitioned into teaching, having the same struggles from a teaching standpoint in terms of just lack of resources to give to students and to use in my teaching. So yes, me and my co-founder Ahmed, we were having conversations. We actually launched, so just to backtrack slightly, we actually launched a project called Quran Stories with Hudhud, which was an app teaching kids the stories of the Quran. We launched this in 2018, I believe. And the idea was to make this app that had all these different stories for kids, all the Quranic stories, and then to expand it further. We launched it with the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, and I think it had something like 9 chapters. We then added the story of Adam alayhi salam. We did do a crowdfunding campaign for that. And alhamdulillah, we were able to get that far, but we realized from a business standpoint or from a monetization standpoint that it was going to cost significantly more than we initially thought.
Okay.
So we were like, okay, we have 2 choices here. Either we go and raise a substantial amount of investment to try and fund this. We either go down a charity route and we try and raise, substantial amount of donations to fund it, which is probably more difficult. Or we try and figure out a way to make this commercially viable, that we can actually self-fund this from the project itself. So the conclusion we kind of came to was, okay, it's going to be very difficult to self-fund it as a kids project, because just to kind of get it off the ground needed X amount of money to get it to a certain level in terms of stories and content. And, when it comes to a kids product, you've got animation, voiceover, and then the tech side of things. And there was a lot more cost than we envisioned. So what we did was we said, okay, what can we do? And that's when I had this conversation with Ahmed. I was like, you know what, for years I've been struggling with teaching Arabic and resources, and it'd be really nice if we could take a lot of the things we did well on the kids project and kind of transform it into an adults-based project. That's probably where the birth of ArabicUnlocked was. It started, like I said, a lot earlier with them pains and struggles that I had in my mind. But then what we went on to do was we launched a crowdfunding campaign that you mentioned. Alhamdulillah, we had a good response. So then we started building the adults app. We launched that just before COVID and the whole lockdown hit. So probably early 2019. And alhamdulillah, we saw. Sorry, you're gonna ask questions.
No, I was gonna interject a little bit. I wanted to know a little bit more about Arabic with hudhud. Like, is the theme of it that there is a hudhud telling stories or something like that? Is that the
Quran story with hudhud? It wasn't Arabic
very nice.
with hudhud.
Sorry.
So there's a character called Hudhud. He's this bird, and he's kind of narrating these stories to the kids of the prophets. The app's still available on the App Store and Play Store. You can download it. It's free to download.
That's a nice concept. That's a really nice concept, because there's actually I've done an episode of a different podcast actually on this, but there's only 3 of the makhluqats that actually speak in the Quran, right? So like in terms of the living things, right? There's the Namla, there's the Hudhud, and obviously humans as well, right? It's an interesting concept that you have. Like other animals, like the bumblebee is like inspired, right? The term awha is used towards the nahal and things like that. But like in terms of where we actually have like spoken language coming from the mouth of an animal, I think the only 2 is the hudhud and the namla, I think, and both of them within very close proximity to each other, unless you can think of another example. But they're within.
It might just be that.
Yeah, within like 2 pages of each other, maybe. Even you have both of them speaking within a very close proximity to each other in the Quran as well. But that's an interesting concept. I like that. So you would say that the difference between Quran stories with hudhud and that and ArabicUnlocked is that one is for children and one is for adults. So you'd say that is the main difference between the 2.
Yeah. The only other example that comes to mind is the jinn. Obviously, the speakers.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah, of course, yeah.
Sorry, but back to the question.
You would say the difference between Quran stories with hudhud and ArabicUnlocked is that ArabicUnlocked is for adults.
Primarily, I mean, Quran story with the hudhud was never intended, at least what we launched, to teach Arabic. It was more about Quran stories and tarbiyah, that kind of thing. Sure. Which is why the brand name was Universal Tarbiyah. But inshallah, in the future, we'll probably come to this, but in terms of future plans for ArabicUnlocked is to inshallah go back into the kids realm and start creating resources for kids to learn Arabic, as well as also to touch on the tarbiyah side of things. But we'll probably interlink them slightly more. So we'll probably come back to Quran stories, but we'll interplay that with like learning Quran and Arabic and vocab and that kind of thing.
Sure. So at the moment, like with the experience of downloading ArabicUnlocked, what is it the students get from ArabicUnlocked? What's the interaction like, and what does it help students do?
So in terms of as a resource, the app itself, the ArabicUnlocked app, it's providing a lot of the same functionalities that people find in popular language learning apps like Duolingo and these other ones. However, the problem with all of them is they've been built for primarily English learning or other kind of European Latin-based languages. And where they do have an Arabic curriculum, it's just a translated version of the English curriculum. And a lot of the stuff doesn't translate well. especially when it comes to cultural-based things. So, for example, in the Arabic Duolingo curriculum, you'll learn things like, I'm going to the club, this is my girlfriend, in Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts people who are learning Arabic to understand the Quran, immediately just puts them off. On top of that, the curriculum isn't optimized for their goal of learning Arabic to understand the Quran. So there's not any focus on Quranic vocab, on trying to decipher ayat and stuff like that. So that's what we offer in the Arabic Unlocked app. We offer, like I said, a lot of the same gamification and functionality, and where possible, we've tweaked it and tailored it for the Arabic language. Certain things just don't translate over from the English. And then on the curriculum side, like I've said, we'll build it from the ground up to give people the commonly used words in the Quran, common phrases, common sentences, teach them the Arabic letters and all that kind of stuff.
And does it operate like a linear curriculum, the same way, like, for example, like, I mean, with Duolingo, it seems like the Duolingo experience is quite a lot different in some ways to its other languages, but not in a way that serves Arabic students. Like, I'd agree with that entirely, that it's like, it seems like a lot of time is spent in the beginning of that course just on the script. Like, my kids use it, like my children use it for learning the Arabic alphabet and the Arabic script and stuff. It seems like a long time is spent on that. But
and also, as far as I know, I mean, I've not looked at it recently, but last time I checked, they were teaching the script through transliteration anyway, which is far from ideal.
Sure.
I don't know if they switched to Arabic script
now they have Arabic script as like a big chunk at the beginning, but it's almost as if it's gone from one extreme to the other. It's like there was none of it, and now there's loads of it in the beginning before you get into like any meat of it. And as you say, like, it's written for very kind of to be like the same way as like the GCSE Arabic is like a GCSE French equivalent, but that's not necessarily what the vast majority of Arabic language students actually want from their Arabic. People don't use Arabic for the same thing that they use Spanish for, or that they aspire to use French for. So yeah, that's absolutely right. So what about like the structure of Arabic Unlocked? Like, is it a very linear curriculum, or how does the student incorporate it into their lives?
So the live curriculum, so Smiley, just to go a bit more into details on how the history of the app has been. The app was launched, like I said, 2019, and subhanAllah, the response was much better than we thought. So we had to accelerate a lot of things. So we threw together a curriculum quite quickly. So we have the Arabic Unlocked Academy as well. We have an online program that was a lot more prepared, that was ready, that was live. The app, obviously, is a very different ball game. So we tweaked a lot of the stuff. We tried to recycle a lot of the stuff. We tried to follow some of the same logic and structure. In aspects, it's linear. In aspects, it's not. But that was just meant to be like a version 1 that was kind of put out there. And it was, alhamdulillah, a lot of people benefited from it. There were 2 issues with it, though. One is, like I said, it wasn't built from the ground up. It probably wasn't given enough time to kind of be an academically robust, thought through, tailor-made curriculum for an app. And number 2, it was kind of deficient on content. So there was a lot more stuff we had planned, but on the tech side of things, how the app was built was very limiting in terms of what we could actually add in terms of content. So every question had to be manually typed in, all the question, all the different options for the answers, and all the sound files and everything. So it took imagine at the moment we've probably got something like 5,000 questions in the app, maybe 10,000. We in parallel we were redeveloping the curriculum. Alhamdulillah, we had some instructors. So Dr. Nadia, she's the professor responsible for introducing A-level Arabic in the UK. She worked with I think it was EdXL and these other examination boards. She oversaw it, and we had another rahimahullah, Dr. Suhaila from Kuwait. She was overseeing the curriculum as well. SubhanAllah. Unfortunately, she passed away during COVID from COVID itself. She was amazing, mashallah. So yeah, alhamdulillah, we redeveloped this curriculum, all the way from the ground up. But to import 50,000 questions would have taken so much longer. So we had to take the tech side back to the drawing board, develop a input system for the questions. Because of COVID for us was good and bad, in the sense that launching and the response to it was very good, but on the people side, like I said, we had a team member pass away, and then on the app side, we had multiple issues with the team, people falling ill, people's family members falling ill, so that knocked back development massively. So long story short is that we've built a new curriculum, but that still hasn't been introduced into the app just yet, because we're still working on the tech side of things.
Okay. You made reference to a like a tour online course then. Like there's something that Arabic Unlocked does that's separate to the app. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have Arabic Unlocked as an organization, basically our mission and our vision is to kind of reintroduce the Arabic language to the world. There was a time where for the Muslims, Arabic was essentially the universal language of the Ummah. And we dream of a day where that kind of comes back, where the language of the Muslims, the universal uniting language can be Arabic once again, where a Pakistani and a British person and an Arab and a Somalian can all speak in Arabic together. In terms of how we're actually going to tackle that, we know that the actual kind of biggest results are going to come from focusing on the next generation, which is children, which is inshallah, which is why our long-term vision is to double down and focus on that. In the meantime, we're focusing on their parents, on the adults. There's a lot of people who, there has been a slight revival in the past maybe 5-10 years in terms of desire and interest to learn Arabic, people re-understanding its importance, I suppose. Thanks to people like Noman Ali Khan and other such people who have kind of reintroduced the importance of Arabic. So we want to kind of build upon that and build resources for people to be able to learn Arabic. So the app is one resource. We also have the Arabic Unlocked Academy, which is another resource, which is for people who are slightly more invested in the Arabic learning journey. They want to study in a slightly more academic manner. They have more time to commit to actually studying, whereas the app is more kind of learn on the go. We also have the academy, which is there for people who are like ready to kind of take that next step.
But there's no doubt, is there, that Noman Ali Khan has had a massive impact on the world of Arabic teachers. Like I think our generation of Arabic teachers, like I know like he influenced the way that I teach and the way that I kind of have a confidence, even as a non-Arab, to deliver Arabic texts and stuff. There's no doubt that he's had a massive impact on like they're definitely on the way that I teach and I present and stuff, but also in terms of a making of Arabic accessible to the English-speaking world and in like the West. There's no doubt that him and Bayina have had a big impact on that, which is pretty cool for sure. So can we so we've kind of got Arabic Unlocked at this point. I'd like to kind of build backwards from like who Assad is and how we ended up at this place now. So kind of at what age do you think you were when you first started approaching Arabic as a language to be learned? I don't just mean like learning Alif Ba Ta in madrasa or whatever. Like how old were you when you thought that you approached Arabic as a language to learn?
Yeah, so as far as I can remember, so in terms of, obviously I was born into a Muslim family, I have a Pakistani origin, and like many people will know, we'll go through the typical madrasa system in the UK. So you'll learn your Alif Ba Tas, and unfortunately, my mother will tell you, I was very bad when it came to that stuff, behavior-wise. So I got kicked out of probably every madrasa class I went to. The teacher would take me for a month and say, I can't have this kid, send him to the next class. I probably did a tour of all the classes in my local masjid before they said just send him somewhere else. Went to another madrasa, they kicked me out. So yeah, I wasn't very good at a young age.
How old?
Like, all the way up until probably 13, 14.
Okay, so what changed?
Nothing changed at that point. At that point, I think after I got kicked out of madrasa at 14, I think my mom and dad kind of just gave up, like how many more madrasas we're going to send him to. Just forget about it. By that stage, I could read Quran. Especially in kind of Pakistani culture, there's this thing about, have you finished the Quran? Have you read the Quran from start to finish in Arabic? That's kind of a checkbox. As long as you've done that, you've kind of, in their eyes, you've kind of fulfilled the objective of going to madrasa in the first place.
Right.
Unless you're going to go on and do hifz, then that starts another checkbox. But I'd done that, so it was kind of like, okay, he's not behaving himself. It's kind of a waste of our time and effort. Let's just. And by the way, I wasn't like extremely badly behaved. I had two issues with me. One is I've always been quite, like I'm 6'3", so I've always been quite big for my age. So I grew quite early. So they always put me in a class with older kids. So I'm a 5-year-old in a class with 9-year-olds. Obviously, I'm going to misbehave, but I look like them.
Right.
And that continued. So I just kept being a kid, which I was, in a class of older kids, and the teachers were just like, this guy's just misbehaving. But in terms of, to answer your question, I remember in year 8 in high school, so I would have been 2008, 8 plus 4, I would have been about 12 or 13. My family went for Umrah back then as well. And that was the first time I'd been for Umrah. And I remember going there, hearing people talk Arabic, and just thinking, oh, wait a minute, Arabic is actually a language. That's when my eyes started to open slightly, that, oh, Arabic's a language. It's not just this thing that we read, and there's actually a practical use to it. And it was we went for Umrah just before Ramadan. So I think we prayed about 3 Tarawih there maybe. And during probably the second juz, so probably the second night of Ramadan, I remember being stood in Mecca, and the Imam was reciting from Surah Al-Baqarah, and he said, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. And up until that point, like every Taraweeh, it was just me there praying, daydreaming, thinking it's too hot, how long is it going to take? And when he read that ayah, I understood the words Maqami Ibrahim, because it was literally opposite me. So I had a taste of, wait a second, I just understood something from the Quran. It never happened before, probably, that I remember till that point. So that feeling, that is very difficult to describe. I'm kind of getting shivers down my spine just talking about it. But at that point, I think I said to myself, SubhanAllah, if I understood 2 words and I feel like this, imagine if I understood everything he's saying. And then I think it was the same night, the guy next to me, probably in Arab, but or maybe not, but he understood Arabic. At some point he started crying. So that added to the kind of, why is this guy crying? Like, what's made him cry that the Imam said or recited? And I want to do that. But I don't want to fake it. I want to have the same experience he's having. But I think that was when I first made that decision that, okay, I want to learn Arabic at some point.
That's beautiful, how it can kind of change in a moment like that. And also as like, as a parent as well, I think about that. Like in my children, my eldest Yusuf, he's only 6, right? And I think about in our children, like, because sometimes it's easy these days to sort of label your children or despair if you see them not enthusiastic about things you'd like them to be or things like that. But sometimes it's important to vary their environments, isn't it? Like for you're doing like a tour of all the masajid in your area, basically, of all the madaris in your area, and they're all kicking you out and stuff. And as a parent, like, I don't know, some parents might have even thought, let's not even bring him to Umrah if he's like this. Do you know what I mean? Some parents, maybe. Do you know what I mean? But for you, it needed a different environment, you know, and that's beautiful. And I didn't experience something like that. Like I remember being in a masjid in Palestine when I was studying there on my year abroad, and there was one ayah in particular. I remember I was sitting in the masjid waiting for Maghrib to come in, and I was thinking, I was looking around this masjid in Palestine, thinking, like, if I hadn't have become a Muslim, like, where would I be now? Like, what things would I be looking at right now? Where would I be sitting and stuff like that? And then in the Salah, the Imam recited an ayah from Surah Al-Hadid, I think. هو الذي ينزل على عبده آيات بينات ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور. I thought, subhanAllah, like within that ayah, there's beauty of having learned Arabic, and there's beauty of Allah having brought some people from a dhulumat ila nur, from the darkness into light. And you know, sometimes in the Salah, these are the fruits of learning the Arabic language, aren't they? Like to be able to appreciate these things from the mouth of the Imam, you know, in the speech of Allah, the speech which was not created. It's such a profound thing to finally be able to enjoy those rewards. But even when you're saying about knowing a few words, right? Like you're saying, being able to get your first taste of that, and being able to appreciate the speech of Allah just from a few words, aren't you? Like that was your situation when you were 13,
it was
14.
That feeling of actually probably the first time I actually woke up in the prayer. Like up until then, the prayer was just a very robotic thing that you do and movements, and I didn't understand a single meaning of a single word in the prayer. If you'd have asked me at that point, what does Allahu Akbar mean? I would have said, what are you talking about? Like it has a meaning. It just never crossed my mind, and we'd never been taught in that way. I don't blame any of the teachers that I had, but it was kind of, they didn't know themselves. So, you know, faqidu shay la yu'ti. It was somebody who doesn't have something can't give it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that waking up in the salah and saying, oh, you know what, there's more to this. Like this is how it's meant to be. It kind of just opened my eyes to how there's another world out there to the prayer and to the Quran. And
so you're sort of, yeah, as you say, like in your early teens, 13, 14 years old. So how long do you spend in Mecca at that point?
No, so it was just an Umrah. So I think the whole trip was about a week, 2 weeks, 10 days, something like that.
MashaAllah, subhanAllah. So what was the transition like then? So what did it look like when you came back? Did we have like a completely new Assad when you got back? Or was it like, did it take much, what was the timeline like from there until when you first started to actually care about what Arabic stuff meant?
Yeah. It'd be nice to say that was, if that's what happened, but that's not what happened. So I do remember this though, and I spoke to my mom about this recently. I remember when we left, or when we were leaving, I said to my mom, I told her at the time, oh, I want to learn Arabic, and when we go back, I want to, I know I've been kicked out of madrasa and stuff. I don't want to go back to madrasa. I want to join an Arabic class. And she was very happy to hear that. And I said to her, you know what, inshallah, the next time I come back here to Mecca, inshallah, I'm going to speak Arabic. That's what I said to her. And so we came back, and this is 2008, maybe 2008. And subhanAllah, at the time, like now, alhamdulillah, there's a lot of stuff online, there's a lot of stuff locally. At that time, it was actually near impossible to find an Arabic class. So I looked, my mom looked. It's not like the internet was exactly a thing. It was just really, like, iPhone was launched in 2007, so internet was still a new thing. So yeah, we didn't really find an Arabic class, and I kind of just gave up on it after a while. So it kind of just lay dormant from 2008 up until college. So college is 2013. So 5 years later, I got to college, and so I went to a Catholic college, and we had a prayer room where we pray Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib. It was actually in the Trinity building of the prayer room, so we used to call it Trinity Prayer Room, which is
right.
Yeah,
Ajib.
Yeah. So we went to the Trinity Prayer Room, and in there, alhamdulillah, in college, so my co-founder Ahmed was studied with me in college, and we had another 2-3 friends, all of who were Arab. So there was Ibrahim, who was Saudi, and we had Ilyas, who was Moroccan. So these guys would always be talking in Arabic, and I'd just be sat there kind of left out. And that's when it kind of re-sparked the desire that, wait a minute, man, I wanted to learn Arabic so I could understand these kind of conversations. And obviously 5 years have passed, the internet's much more of a thing now. And so I went back home and started searching again, okay, Arabic classes and stuff like that. And I did find one. So that's when I took my first Arabic class, which was run by the Leeds University in 2013, when I'm about 18, maybe 17.
Interesting. Because I when I first started learning Arabic, it was actually before I started learning Arabic, kind of here and there, actually before my Islam. And I'm not from a city though. Like I grew up in Cornwall, and like maybe our nearest Tesco was like half an hour drive away or something like that. Like we didn't. So my kind of immediate reaction wasn't to find a course, because I was like, there's not going to be, well, in Cornwall of all places, like Leeds is one thing, do you know what I mean? But I don't know if you've ever been to Cornwall, but like finding someone who would teach Arabic, it's a little bit different now, but back then, sort of 10 years ago, it was completely different. So like I got introduced to the world of online Arabic resources like straight away. Like that resource, I think they're still about, actually, Arabic Pod 101 and arabicpod.net, things like that. I used to do a paper round to earn some money when I was like, in my like early mid-teens and stuff, and I used to listen to Arabic Pod 101 as I was walking around the village and stuff. And then as I became more interested in Islam, I had like, Surah of the Quran. I had like one of those little iPod, not an iPod Shuffle. I had one of the ones that was like bright colors and stuff. I had one of those little iPods, iPod Mini or something, or yeah, I had one of those. But it was full of like Arabic Pod 101 stuff that I downloaded from my computer. There was there was some resources, some songs for learning the Arabic alphabet on YouTube that are probably still knocking about somewhere. Yeah, so like I had a real from really early, like I took real inspiration from some of those things. Like I remember being really inspired by the guys who run Arabic Pod, because like when I'd see some of the videos on YouTube, and they'd be, not dissimilar to my setup now, like they'd have like sound panels and stuff around them and a microphone, and I thought that's so cool that they're like making these resources out for the world, that people like me walking around my village in Cornwall, listening to their episodes. So I had the privilege of kind of taking inspiration from resources like that I think have helped me, in my career, I think. But anyway, so like, okay, so you get to like enroll in a course with a teacher at Leeds University, right? A shout out to Leeds, by the way. Leeds is a nice place. I like the north generally. I think the north of England's massively underrated. Unfortunately, people come to the UK and they spend all their time in London, but the north's all right, you know. Have you always?
The nicest thing about the north is probably similar to Cornwall. We're like right in the middle of 3 national parks. So we have the Yorkshire Dales, the Peak District, and the Lake District, which is, for me, the best part of the UK.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, to a more like that's more natural beauty in terms of landscape than Cornwall, but Cornwall's obviously by the sea, so Cornwall has that other type of natural beauty, you know. But even with that kind of, you end up fostering more of like a people are just kind of friendlier. People tend to just have more time and stuff like that. Like that is something similar that Cornwall and some places in the north probably have. Certainly, because I did some of my teacher training in Leeds. Yeah, in the summer holiday before I started my first teaching job, because I was a primary school teacher before I came into the internet to do this Arabic stuff. I started my career as a primary school teacher, and and I had to do some of my teacher training in Leeds, and I don't know, something I didn't realize this was similar about you and I, that we kind of started out with some of our stuff trying to create resources for children initially. Like I sort of I did that because I'd been a primary school teacher, and I thought that was the obvious thing to do, just to carry on with children. But I had a real challenge, and I think it can definitely be done well. Like you could definitely create good resources and experiences for learning online for children, but it's very resource heavy, you know, to do that. But I think we really need to do it. I think from a Muslim perspective, as much as anything, we really, really need to compete, because someone out there is going to compete for the attention of your children. And, you know, and I think like maybe one of the most noble things that we can put our money towards actually is halal, good quality, positive content. And like, I think maybe one of the big reasons for the success of the English language, even until now, in large part is because of the prolific content for children that exists in the English language. Actually, I recently had a brother who you might have seen on Instagram and stuff, called Simon. He's actually Swedish originally, but he's studying Arabic in Dubai now. And like you probably know, people from like Sweden, Finland, Holland, Netherlands, Finland, Norway, their English is amazing. Loads of them, right? And in large,
better than ours, to be honest.
Often better than ours, right? Last time I was in the UK, there was a radio show on in the background at my dad's house, and I thought it was like 2 people who were English speaking. It turns out one of them was a Belgian football player, right? Someone in the UK, Vincent Kompany, right? I don't know if he even plays anymore. It's probably old now, but old for a footballer anyway.
I thought, manager now, I think.
Right, okay, yeah. Well, it was on the radio, and I thought, man, he sounds like a Londoner, or he sounds like someone from the UK, like he. Yeah. So anyway, the point I'm making is that sort of thing can be achieved through good quality, prolific content created in a certain language. And it would be interesting to see if it was well resourced enough. And frankly, if the Muslims cared enough about it, which is something we should want to inspire in our ummah, really, to actually be behind it like that. Because as Simon was saying to me, like he never really studied English. Like he never really put a lot of effort into sitting down, learning English grammar and stuff. Like he just picked it up growing up, because in Sweden the English language is just accessible. There's English language content on the TV. Like when they buy PlayStations, it'll be set up in Arabic, in English or whatever. Like if we could kind of foster that to some kind of degree for our children's content, it would be very, very powerful.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, there's some progress in this area already. So we've got initiatives like Omar and Hannah, you know, Durio. Shout out to Sinan, mashallah, they're doing amazing work over there. And inshallah, like I said, we're working on quite a big project when it comes to kids as well. So at some point this year, inshallah, that will be announced as well.
Good, inshallah. May Allah bless you guys who really have kind of the energy and the skills to build a company capable of that, because it really requires lots of people with their own specialisms to kind of come together to build things like that very well. Like I just know it about myself. I don't really have the temperament to want to and also my lifestyle hasn't really allowed it. Like I've wanted to move here to Somalia and stuff like that. Like I haven't really had the stability to be able to do anything like it. But you know, so it hasn't really been for me in my career. And I'm really happy with where I am now. Like I have an online community of Arabic students and stuff. And generally just the nature of my Arabic program, we tend to attract students who are sort of like-minded. Like the fact that it's called Arabic in 60 steps. Most people don't want to do 60 steps. It's not very catchy. It's quite a big number for steps, right? So most people who come to the program, they're people who have like a lifelong ambition regarding the Arabic language. Like they're not really people coming looking to finish Arabic. You know, they're not expecting like a few classes to solve their problem. They're people who really deeply love Arabic. So, you know, alhamdulillah, I'm happy with where it's gone, but I can absolutely appreciate the importance of it and the difficulty of it, of creating resources like that for children, for sure. So to bring it back to your story a little bit, so you kind of get an opportunity to sit in a classroom with an Arabic teacher in kind of a more formal setting. What was the nature of that course in Leeds? Was it like a 1 year or 2 year thing? What was it like?
It was an evening class. It was 2 hours a week, I think. And it was there were three 6-month modules. So I completed the whole thing over the 2 years I was at college. I finished that whole thing in the evenings, and I passed with like 4 marks or whatever the highest grade was. But somehow at the end of it, I kind of sat down and thought, okay, how much Arabic do I know compared to when I started? And unfortunately, I realized not a lot, like much less than I would have expected and would have liked. Like I couldn't string a sentence together. I could tell you a bunch of grammar rules, kind of, that I'd learned that had been the core of. So this is the problem, because it was run by Leeds University. It was a very academic kind of language course. It wasn't focused on actually teaching the language. It was focused on getting you the credits to pass the course.
Right.
So come to the end of it, I felt like I honestly hadn't learned a huge amount. I'd learned maybe 10, 20 words from the vocab list that we'd had to memorize that I could tell you off the top of my head. I could string a couple of sentences together with them words. I could understand a couple of things that I'd maybe heard throughout the course, and that was it, which was quite poor for 18 months of part-time study. Take, for example, compare that to jiu-jitsu, for example. 18 months of jiu-jitsu, I'd expect to be close to a blue belt and tapping out people who are at white belt. Whereas 18 months of Arabic, and I felt like I was still barely better than a person who just started. I use jiu-jitsu as an example because it's something I train as well.
Nice.
So yeah, I felt like something's not right here. But during that time, I'd had to make a couple of decisions. So I'd come to the end of college. In the second year of college, you have to apply for university here in the UK. Since I was a kid, if you'd asked me what do you want to do when you're older, I didn't have an answer. I've never had a career path I wanted to go down. I've never had, like, again, my mom will tell you, when I was young, you asked me what do you want to be when you're older. 1 week I'd say I want to be a bin man. Next week I'd say I want to be a frog. Like the answers were just the most pointless random answers. But this stuck with me. So when I got to college and everybody's like, oh, I'm going to go study medicine, I'm going to go study engineering, and I was like, well, I don't really want to study anything. I don't want to study something for the sake of it. So I had to question myself. I said, okay, the only thing I know I want to do is study Arabic. And I also know I don't want to study in university, having done an 18 months university course. I was like, 3 years of that is going to be pointless for me. So I started assessing my options, and there weren't many, to be honest. And I kind of boiled it down to, there was Egypt, which was the one that everybody kept saying, go Egypt. There was a couple of universities in the Middle East, but they were not easy to get into. Like Egypt, I could just go and turn up and figure it out. These universities I would have had to apply for and get accepted. And then there was there's like Medina University and these are the universities. And then there was an institute in France that I'd heard of, but I didn't know a whole lot about. And when I'd searched on the internet, there was barely any information. So, and then there was another one, Ibrahim College in London. So what happened was, initially I applied to Ibrahim College and they offered me a place. So the plan was go to Ibrahim College, but for one reason or the other, first of all, it was very expensive in terms of accommodation to live in central London and East London where they are. So that was an issue. And then I had arranged accommodation. Me and this guy were going to share a flat, and then he pulled out. So then it's just left with me. There was not a lot of time to arrange. So that fell through. So then I was left with the other options. I'd applied to these universities. None of them accepted me. So I was left between France, this place in France, which I didn't know a whole lot about, and Egypt. So Egypt was the next logical option. So I started making preparation to go to Egypt. And then, subhanAllah, maybe a couple of weeks before I put it into action in terms of booking tickets and stuff, there was the whole political issues in Egypt in that year. I think Morsi was outed, and then there was the army came in, and so that was no longer an option either. Although I know some people who were still there and who went at the time, but because it was a new thing, and my parents were very like, no, we're not going to Egypt. So I said, okay, not going to Egypt. So then I was kind of just left with, okay, now what? So I hadn't applied to university, and I had no real plan ahead of me in terms of how I'm going to learn Arabic. I remember this was the summer holidays. It was Ramadan, and I was doing i'tikaf in the masjid, and I was kind of just sat there like when I get out of it, what am I going to do with my life? I had no idea. I'd kind of just settled upon, I'm not going to university. I have a year off. I'm just going to spend that year, learn Arabic by hook or crook. I'm going to watch YouTube videos. I'm going to, whatever it takes, I'm going to somehow learn Arabic. This institute in France is called the Ma'had al-Urupi lil-Ulum al-Islami or Insani. They have two names. The European Institute for Human Sciences. It used to be called Islamic Sciences. They changed it to Human Sciences for whatever reason. So I'd been Googling them. I'd been trying to ring them. Nobody's answering. Eid finishes. I go home. I give them another call. So this is now beginning of September. And somebody actually answers the phone. So like, oh, wait, this is real. There's people here. And I'm trying to talk to the guy, and he only speaks French or Arabic. So I'm thinking, right, I'll call you back. I run to my friend's house, who's a Saudi. I go, I need you to translate with this guy for me, with this guy. So he speaks to him, and he basically tells me all the information that they have a 2-year Arabic course. This is how you apply. This is the term had already started at this point. So he's like, we have a couple of spaces left, but you need to be here by next week. Otherwise they're going to fill up. So then I was like, okay. So I went home. I said to my mom, right, mom, I'm off France. Where are you going? I'm going to this random institute that I'm not even 100% sure exists. But some guy answered the phone, so I'm booking a ticket. I'm off. And that's how I ended up in the Ma'had in France.
So you actually studied Arabic in France?
Yeah.
SubhanAllah, for 2 years, you did their 2-year course there, or 1 year?
I did their 2-year course in 1 year.
Didn't you have a barrier with needing to learn French as well?
No, so alhamdulillah, so if anybody wants to Google the institute, it's called Al-Ma'had. It's actually called the European Institute of Human Sciences, EIHS. They have 2 institutes, one in Paris and one in a village in the middle of the countryside called Château-Chinon, which is where I studied. So this place used to be a activity center in the 90s, and they purchased it and converted it into a learning institute. So they have 3 departments. They have Sharia, where they study Islamic studies. They have Quran memorization department, and they have the Arabic studies department. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I studied there. Again, wasn't 100% sure this place existed. I bumped into a former student shortly after this, who was one of the imams in the local masjid. He'd come from the US and he'd studied there. So I spoke to him about it. He's like, yeah, it's real. He gave me the instructions on how to get there, which were very vague, by the way. It's like, get to Paris, catch a train to this village in the middle of the French countryside, catch a bus that goes to the village where the institute is, and then somebody will pick you up from the bus station.
How old were you at this point?
18.
18, okay.
So they were literally the instructions I had. I followed them, booked a plane ticket. To my parents, I was like, yeah, it's all figured out. Don't worry. In my head, I thought, what am I doing? I jumped on a plane, jumped on a train, got to this village called Château-Chinon. And I'd rang them the day before telling them I'm going to be at the village at a certain time. What happened is along the way, I'd missed the train. So I was 1 day delayed. I had to get a hotel, stay there overnight, get the train the next day. So I get to the village and I'm like, right, now I need to get picked up. How do I get picked up? My SIM card wasn't working. I had no internet, had no phone. I'm got a suitcase and like hand luggage on top of each other. And I'm just pushing it around, walking around this village, trying to figure out what to do. I thought maybe I'll see the institute. I'll just walk there. It's about, if you were to walk, it'd probably take you an hour and a half. In a car, it's about a 10-minute drive, but it's up and down hills and it's in the middle of the countryside, you can imagine. So eventually I walk into some shop and I was like, do you speak English? You speak English? One guy goes, little. I was like, oh, okay, good. I go, can I use your phone? I need to ring this institute. And he goes, yeah, no problem. So I rang the institute. Then I was like, oh, wait a minute. They don't speak English. So I'm trying to tell the guy on the other end who I am and that I need picking up. And I'm just like using the 5 words of Arabic I know. I'm like, Ana Assad, Ana fil bus stop. And he's like, Anta fi Boston? I was like, no, not Boston. Ana fil bus stop. I didn't know how to say bus stop. I didn't know how to say bus. So I'm just repeating myself again and again. And I thought, man, he's going to hang up. And then what do I do? And subhanAllah, I remember at one point he just went, okay. I was like, alhamdulillah, he's understood. Somehow he understood who, I think because I'd sent an application form in, he knew my name, but he's a busy guy. He had a bunch of application forms. He's not going to recognize it just because I'm saying it again and again. But yeah, alhamdulillah, then eventually he realized somebody came to pick me up and I actually ended up in the institute.
MashaAllah, what a story. Going to France to study Arabic, then turning up in some little village somewhere. Imagine you turning up in a little French village, people looking at you.
Yeah.
You walking around with 2 suitcases.
I got a lot of funny looks.
Yeah, you must have done. What an adventure, mashallah. That's so good. So like, what about the experience actually at the university? Like, I guess they have like university accommodation and stuff like that for you for the whole duration, right?
Oh yeah, that was the original question, wasn't it? So in terms of the actual course itself, so the on-site, alhamdulillah, in theory, everybody's meant to be speaking Arabic, so it's a very immersion-based learning environment. What actually happens is, so all the classes are taught in Arabic, in all the departments, and the students are encouraged to use Arabic outside of class. So you live on site, you have a dormitory there. What actually happens is the French people will just talk in French, the English people will just talk in English. The French people will try to talk to the guys who know English because they want to improve their English. So actually using Arabic is quite difficult. But I remember I turned up class first day and the teacher's just teaching in Arabic. I'm just sat staring at his face like, what is he saying? What is happening? And that was literally the course. Like every day the teacher's just teaching in Arabic and you're kind of forced to have to figure out what's going on.
So wait, so is the whole university for that?
Yeah.
Oh, mashallah. So it's not like...
So they have 3 departments. They have Sharia, they have Quran, and they have Arabic.
Okay, but for all of the students, like it's regardless of what you're studying, it's a very Arabic immersive experience, though.
It's taught in everything's taught in Arabic.
Yeah. Somewhere in the French countryside.
Yeah.
What about that village that you had to arrive in? Were they all white people, or was it like a very Arab heavy village?
So a lot of the staff and the families of former students live there.
Okay.
But they still are going to be the minority. It's still a French village full of French people.
Subhanallah. That's amazing. So, okay, so you spent 2 years there. What do you kind of, obviously you talked about how you spent sort of 18 months, not that much less than the 2 years you spent in France, right? Like you spent sort of 18 months with this university.
I spent a year in France, not 2 years.
Oh, sorry, it was just a year, wasn't it? Yeah. So anyway, so you spent 18 months at Leeds University doing this module. And after it, you felt like you knew like a bit of Arabic, really. How different was the experience after the 1 year in France?
Yeah, France was a completely different, so like I said, I turned up to lesson day 1, teachers just talking in Arabic. I haven't got a clue what's going on. From the UK, there were 3 of the students. There were 4 or 5 from European countries that knew English. So there was a couple of brothers from Belgium. So they spoke French and English and Flanders or whatever the language is, or Dutch as well. So the teacher would just, all the class was at the same level. Nobody knew Arabic. So in France, you have a lot of Moroccans and Algerians and Tunisians. So some of the students were from that background. So they had some level of Arabic, but their Fushaa was terrible. You had people like me who didn't understand anything. So thankfully, one of the Belgian brothers was Moroccan. So he was understanding some of what the teacher's saying. Sometimes the teacher didn't know any English. He only knew French. So when nobody was understanding what he was saying and he was drawing and he was trying to act it out, nobody understood. He'd then just say something in French. Quite rarely, to be honest. But when he would do that, then they would translate to English for us, thankfully. But honestly, the first month was it's difficult to describe. It was kind of just, we were kind of thrown in the deep end and we had to swim. And the teacher would talk very clearly, very loudly, repeat himself an awful lot, say the same things every single day. And you kind of just start to understand him after a while.
It's it's an interesting to think about what's going on in your head at that point. Because at that point, like another person who came on the podcast not so long ago talked about Arabic students in a very immersive environment, often having like a silent phase, like often our children do before they start speaking. They're observing a lot all the time. They're listening to their parents speak all the time. They're hearing whatever their native language is all the time, right? And then all of a sudden, they just start speaking, right? Because they've just absorbed so much. But obviously children, that's forced on them. They can't just opt out of it at some point and just start speaking. that is forced on them, right? But like someone in your position, you could have left at any point, right? But like you were still willing to sit there and just not know anything for quite a while. Like that's really interesting, because the Arabic student should really be encouraged to have some sabr in the beginning, certainly in an immersive situation like that. That's really interesting. So you would say that, obviously you'd say that your Arabic after that 1 year was way better way better than the 18 months after.
Honestly, after 4 weeks, it was probably already better than the whole.
SubhanAllah.
Bear in mind, this is full-time study and that's part-time study. But
sure.
I did clock a significant number of hours and I put a lot of effort into that study, and I still feel like I didn't learn anything. But here, because of so there's a couple of things that worked in my favor, I suppose. Just to that point you made about being quiet for a long time. So our teacher didn't really allow that. Ustad Bakush would force us to ask us questions, and he'd do an activity where he'd say, right, I'll give an example. Hal anta rajul am imra? And he'd make everybody stand up and say, ana rajul, ana rajul. And then he'd ask other questions. Hal anta mutazawwij am a'zab? And then you'd have to stand up and say, ana mutazawwij, ana a'zab. And literally everybody in the class, one by one, would do it. You'd have to think a little bit, which one am I? And then you'd have to actually stand up and say it. But he'd do a lot of that in the beginning. Like you've said it once, you've heard it 30 times, it kind of sinks in a little bit. So yeah, he didn't really allow, but you are hearing a lot.
Sure.
He's forcing you to kind of interact and speak. But in terms of study, so there's a couple of things that were good about the institute. Number one is you kind of live on site. They have a cafeteria where meals are cooked. I mean, it wasn't exactly gourmet food, but it was, alhamdulillah, calories in the body. And you have a lot of free time. So it's very much the student life. You're kind of living on campus. You go to classes from 9 till 1, like 9 till Dhuhr. Then the rest of the afternoon is free. So you can sleep all day. You can, we'd play football on campus sometimes. But you have a lot of time to study if you want to. Now, I told myself before I went, and this is kind of the part of the conversation I had with my mom. She said, okay, you want to learn Arabic. She wasn't sure if I was going through a phase, if I was going crazy, what was going on. So to try and put some sense into me, she said, right, I'll let you go study Arabic. I'll let you go to France. But when you come back, you need to go to university. So you've got 1 year. So in my head, I was like, okay, I've got 1 year. I need to do this in 1 year. I haven't got another year. So when I got there, I kind of had this mindset that I've got no time to waste. Alhamdulillah, this place is actually giving me the opportunity to study a lot. So I kind of went to an extreme where I was just every waking moment trying to either study, or, for example, what me and 3 of my friends did was we signed a contract about a month in that we're going to stop talking in English or any other language. We're just going to talk in Arabic to the best of our ability.
Mm-hmm.
And we literally signed a contract, and there was a penalty that if you say even one word of another language, you have to give one pound in charity or €1 in charity.
Mm-hmm.
And that can tot up very fast. And we didn't have a lot of money at the time either. And
SubhanAllah.
We had 2 witnesses. We had 2 witnesses there. And we signed it.
That's amazing. And that's something that any Arabic student could do. Any people could do. Any 2, 3, 4, 8, whatever group of people, they can get witnesses and sign something. There's something that I do in my work. It feels kind of silly, but it works well for me. Like when I'm kind of planning out what I'm going to do for the Arabic in 60 Steps program, how we're going to package it, price it, whatever kind of boring stuff on the back end I deal with. Sometimes I put a little box in the bottom corner and I just put signed off by the CEO. I don't run an organization. I'm not the CEO or nothing, right? But did you know what I mean? But like signing that box, it weighs really heavy on me. But my signature at that box is like, look, if the CEO signed it off, then it means this has got to happen. Like, it means this thing has got to happen. Like, because then when I look at it retrospectively, I'm like, wow, the CEO signed this off, but it was just me with a pen. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Obviously, that way is that's a far lighter thing than what you're talking about, having witnesses and it being binding by the company of other people who share a goal and things like that. But just in terms of like a student study and committing themselves to it, that's an interesting kind of practical thing people could just implement in their lives. So, because quite often like on the 60 Steps program, we often have students who live really close to each other, like especially in areas like in the US where there's lots of Muslim, or maybe even in the UK actually, in parts of East London that are like majority Bangladeshis and stuff. We quite often have like a lot of our students in one area, and they could quite easily do something like that. they could have something like that, that's pretty. I've never heard of Arabic students doing that before. I kind of wish we'd thought about it when we were in Palestine, because I lived with 3 other guys, but they all spoke English. We're from the same university in the UK, right? Like, we should have done something like that. That's really cool.
It was a bit extreme, but subhanAllah, I can tell you now, from the day we signed that contract, like the progress just went like this, because like one of my friends even told me I was talking in my sleep, and I was talking in Arabic in my sleep, which is, I didn't know I talk in my sleep, first of all, but I actually got to the point where I was just thinking in Arabic. Like I came back to the UK to visit, and I remember bumping into a high school friend, and I was genuinely struggling to talk to him in English, because I'd start a sentence in English and without realizing, just start talking in Arabic, and he'd be looking at me like, "What are you saying?" And I was like, "Oh, so I didn't realize I did that."
SubhanAllah. So when you come back, did your mum win you over and force you off to university, or did you win in that battle?
So what happened is, because obviously with university you need to apply ahead of time. So while I was in France, I actually applied for university here.
Okay.
I had the exact same dilemma I had a year earlier. Only the difference is I didn't say, "Oh, I want to learn Arabic." So it was a matter of, okay, I need to apply for something. And it was, honestly, I made a list of like, what could I like tolerate? And it was between like astrophysics, physiotherapy, and psychology, I think.
Okay.
And then it was like a coin toss, and ip dip do, and I picked astrophysics.
The hardest. Okay, go on.
I wrote a personal statement. Like, I remember that people in college, in universities, or in college ahead of university, probably spend 6 months writing a personal statement. I wrote mine like laying in bed on my phone, sent it off, got offered a place at Leeds University for astrophysics. So when I came back, I think I did about 3 months of astrophysics, and then I said, "What on earth am I doing here? I don't want to be a physicist." They keep telling me that, "Oh, this opens doors." I don't want to open doors. Like, I want to do one thing, but I don't know what that thing is yet. So I dropped out. I said, "This is a waste of time."
Okay. By the way, for people internationally who don't know, Leeds is a really good university in the UK. Like, Leeds isn't a university you should, when you apply for it, you shouldn't write your personal statement in bed. It's more the sort of,
I don't recommend that.
yeah, it's more the sort of university that you put a lot of effort into getting into. I was actually offered a place at Leeds because they do BA Arabic. They offer BA Arabic as well. Yeah. I applied to Leeds, Exeter, SOAS, obviously where I went to, and then like I applied for 2 courses that didn't have as high entry requirements to Spanish. I think Chester was one of them. Isn't that near you? Isn't that in the north, Chester? It was completely random. Like, it was like what university would let me in with 3 C's or something. And I applied to a couple of those as well. But alhamdulillah, in the end, I went to SOAS, by the way. I was accepted at Exeter. But I'm from Cornwall. Exeter might have made sense in some ways to be close to family. But like, for me, it wasn't just about learning Arabic. It was also about being somewhere where there'd actually be Muslims and stuff, where there'd be a big Muslim community. And London had to be that for me, really, at that point. Because like when you embrace Islam in Cornwall, like, I didn't have any Muslim friends my age. Like, at the masjid, all of the Muslims are all like established adults who have restaurants and stuff in Cornwall, or they're professors at the university and stuff like that. So I needed to go to a place that would do that for me. So you so you gave it a chance, astrophysics at Leeds, and then so what is it like by the new year? You were back home?
I think I dropped out before Christmas, or like
sure. Okay, fair enough. So what does it look like in the timeline from there, where you give astrophysics a go, but don't do all of it because you've got other things on your mind? From there up until Quran stories with Hudhud, what's the time period like there?
Yeah, there's a couple of years of soul searching and trying a bunch of different things out and trying to figure things out. And yeah, very zigzaggy kind of thing.
Okay.
Considering, like, literally going from considering maybe I re-enroll, maybe I go back to France, maybe I do this. I got offered a place in a university in Mecca, which I took too long to accept, and the offer expired.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, Allah knows best. Allah knows best.
Yeah, no, subhanAllah, I don't regret any of it looking back. But at the time, I was like, man, why did I waste so much time? Because I had a slight dilemma that, because I know the year that I was away. So I've got two sisters, and then I'm the only boy in the family. And me and my mum, alhamdulillah, we're very close. So I know the year that I was away, it was a new experience for her. I've never been out of the house for that long, and I know it was difficult on her. So I kind of didn't really want to go away for. I knew if I was going to go away again to study, it would be for 3-4 years. It wouldn't just be another year. So I was kind of in a dilemma that, do I want to do that? Is there some happy medium where I can kind of stay closer to home and not have to go for 4 years to another country, and I don't see her except like twice a year? That was kind of the reason that I took so long to decide.
Sure.
Actually, I didn't decide. They just took the offer away. So
okay, fair enough.
Made on my behalf.
Fair enough. There's two more things I'd like to ask from you, inshallah. So one of them, you've alluded to it a couple of times actually. Number one, in Mecca, obviously when you kind of first started to taste what hearing the Quran is like with some understanding, and then also hearing people speak Arabic there, and then you also alluded to this kind of dialect Fushaa dichotomy in France as well, with obviously there being Moroccans and Algerians, Tunisians and stuff there. Like, have you kind of delved much into having to navigate that in your Arabic language learning journey? Because this is a recurring thing for all Arabic students. How do they navigate this kind of Fushaa dialect dichotomy?
Yeah. So in my circumstances, so in terms of what happened from an Arabic standpoint after this, when I came back from France, very short. So I have a local masjid here, Leeds Grand Mosque. The Imam Jazakallah Khair, he's Libyan. His English is perfectly fine, but he prefers to do the khutbah in Arabic, and then somebody will translate it into English. So we had a brother who was doing the translation, and he then, I think, moved country. So he comes to me one week and he's like, Assad, can you do the translation this week? I was like, yeah, maybe. So he sent me a copy of the translation, and then I did it. I read it out that week. I'd done some public speaking before. I delivered some khutbahs in like college, so I wasn't too shy in terms of public speaking. So I did it. The translation wasn't great, so I said to the sheikh, I go, look, why don't you just? I go, is somebody else going to do it next week? He goes, not yet. You're going to do it next week. I said, okay, just send me the Arabic script, and I'll translate it myself, and then I'll read it out, and I'll be more familiar with it. It'll be easier for me. This was like 7 years ago. I'm still the temporary translator. I'm waiting for the
Subhanallah.
So yeah, so that was a big help in terms of, on a Friday every week I'll translate the khutbah and I'll read it out. Mm-hmm. Also on a Monday we have Sheikh Abdullah Al-Judai, who's a very prominent scholar, and he does a tafsir class on a Monday in our masjid as well. And I noticed that one week there was a brother who kept coming who was learning Arabic, but I knew his Arabic was very poor, and he would be there every week. And one week I just said to him, do you understand any of what he's saying? He goes, not really, none. I go, do you want me to translate to you, or to try and translate? And then I started doing like an instant translation in his ear, and that became a thing. So then every Monday for like the past 7 years, I was translating that tafsir circle on a Monday, and then that led on to a lot. So Sheikh would run Dorat, he would run like courses, weekend courses, like 8 hours on a Saturday, 8 hours on a Sunday, and I'd end up translating the whole thing, live translation in English. So that was in terms of continuing the Arabic studies. I know that wasn't your question. In terms of dialects, the reason I mentioned all this was because of the masjid. So our masjid is a kind of predominantly Arab masjid.
Okay.
So we have Libyans, we have Egyptians, we have Moroccans, we have Algerians, and so on. So alhamdulillah, I have been quite exposed to different dialects, simply just from conversing with people in the masjid. My co-founder is also Libyan, so I hear a lot of Libyan dialect. So I never really made a kind of intentional effort to learn any dialect. I kind of just was forced to pick it up. So I'd hear them say something, and I'd have to reverse engineer. Okay, where did that? Because a lot of the stuff has roots in Fusha. If you can, some stuff you have to trace quite far back, but some of it's quite kind of obvious once you realize. So yeah, I do a lot of kind of trying to reverse engineer what they just said and eventually you kind of just pick it up.
Interesting. Yeah, because like I don't know, I hear lots of different types of experiences with that. Like there's some people I hear about who go to Egypt and they're learning Fushaa and they use their Fushaa and like get laughed at and things like that. I've never had that. I've personally never had that experience. Because whenever I like when I was in Palestine and when I was in Egypt as well, like I don't act like I am them. They know I'm a foreigner. I'm not fooling anyone. Do you know what I mean? Like I act like I am an English person who's gone to their country to learn their language, like completely transparently like that. And that's kind of my approach to it. To be honest, like in terms of learning its like grammar and going into detail in dialects, I don't have a huge interest in it, to be honest. And I'm very transparent about that with my students as well. But like I don't know, I find dialects like they're not really something to be studied. They're more something to be gotten used to, if you know what I mean. That's only been my experience anyway. Like I haven't really found.
I think it comes back to as well your purpose. Like if you're going to learn Moroccan Arabic, it's only because you're going to live in Morocco or you have Moroccan people you're going to speak to. Just simply knowing it for the sake of it really doesn't serve any purpose.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, that's
good.
The
thing about dialects as well, I just add. Sorry to cut you.
Go ahead.
Is that I do feel like there's a lot of what's said about it which isn't necessarily true, like you were saying, in terms of Fusha. The story about Egypt is understandable because in Egypt they have Ammiya, which is you can consider it a different language. So if you come and start speaking in Fusha, somebody doesn't know Fusha, apart from this is the language of the Quran, this is the language of Hadith, then you're going to struggle. But generally what you find is the majority of anybody older than 30, or even mid-20s, to be honest, is going to have studied some level of Fusha if in the Arab world, in their schooling and on TV and cartoons and stuff like that. So they will understand a good amount of Fusha, if not completely. Their ability to speak, obviously they're used to speaking in, it's like now if I'm speaking in English, if I'm speaking in slang all day long, it's very difficult to switch to speaking formally. Similar to them, it's like they're speaking slang all day and then they have to switch to formal. So it's going to be a mixture of like a watered down Fusha with some slang in there, some Ammiya in there. But generally, I find that pretty much anybody you meet in the Arab world, unless they like completely have no understanding of Fusha, you're able to communicate with some kind of hybrid middle ground version of.
Yeah, I find like if you learn Fusha, I've personally found that it's much easier to go in the other direction. Like if you've got used to like your case endings and stuff being really tight and using Fusha and stuff, and then to have to not use a lot of that and make your I find it's a lot easier. I find that transition much easier. Like to be honest, like I did loads of like tutoring and stuff before I created an online course. Like I mean hundreds of hours of like being with lots of students in person. And some of my most challenging students to get through like the Arabic GCSE and stuff were people who spoke Ammiya at home but knew no Fusha. They were some of my most challenging students because they use this thing at home all day and it works perfectly well and they call it Arabi at home, right? So, explaining to them why they have to say Uridu an usafira in the GCSE exam, they think that's a big mushkila, and it's a lot harder to get that into the brain of someone who is so entrenched in Ammiya, than it is someone who's a completely blank slate.
It has certain rules and certain structures that are consistent, that apply to Ammiya, but just don't apply to Fusha. And then for them to unlearn that and to kind of cancel that is very difficult.
True. Yeah, true. Yeah, that's true. That's certainly what I've found. Like in an example that I saw recently somewhere on social media was someone who's in Egypt learning Arabic there, like learning Fusha in an institute there, and like was in Pizza Hut or something and got laughed at by the people at the checkout, right? So like what you're saying, if it's young people like that, and also another thing, like I don't know, maybe I'm a bit harsh with this, but this is my view, right? Anybody who's going to laugh at the language that Allah sent the Quran down in the way that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke, I don't care about their opinion very much.
Yeah, I agree.
Like if they're going to laugh at it, that doesn't mean I'll be horrible to them. It doesn't mean I'm going to get aggressive with them. It just means like if it's the person at Pizza Hut or whatever, and they're laughing at me because I don't know, whatever, I choose to use something a bit more fasih than what they're used to. I'm not going to take their opinion I'm not going to get upset by their opinion and start not adhering to the rules that Allah has legislated for the Arabic language in the Quran.
They call it al-jahl al-murakkab. That person's ignorant and he doesn't even realize he's the ignorant one.
Okay, right.
He's laughing at you.
Subhanallah. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, and then there's one last thing. I ask this of all of my guests, inshallah. I would really like just any open advice that you have for the Arabic students out there. We don't know who out there is listening to this who really needs some type of advice. So whatever you found to be like just a really good advice for Arabic students in general, I want to hear it.
I'll be honest, what I found is when it comes to learning Arabic, 90% of it comes down to less to do with all this curriculum, that curriculum, this technique, that technique, all that kind of stuff. A lot of it just comes down to the simple stuff of motivation, self-discipline, consistency. It's like the gym. Take any person, and if he goes to the gym every day and he lifts weights and he gradually increases the weight of what he's lifting, there's no other result he's going to get other than he's going to grow in sizes, he's going to get fitter, he's going to get stronger. When it comes to learning Arabic, I don't get how difficult you think it is and how complicated and all these preconceived notions you have in your mind and all these limiting beliefs. Are you telling me that if you studied Arabic every single day for X amount of time, that you wouldn't learn or you wouldn't improve your Arabic? And you can't argue with that. So you need to get rid of these kind of artificial deadlines you've put in your head. And I talk a lot about to people, I learned Arabic in 9 months, and when I was in France, because it was a 9-month term. I was there for a year, but it was only 9 months in terms of actual studying. But that doesn't mean you need to do it in the same amount of time. That doesn't mean your circumstances are the same. None of that applies. You might tell yourself, I want to, like, take for example, money. Somebody says, I want to become a millionaire by next year, right? Okay, you can want that all day long, but if that's going to stop you from actually doing what you need to do to actually have that possibility of achieving that, compared to somebody who says, you know what, I'm going to try for 20 years and maybe I'll achieve it at the end of them 20 years. Or if, for example, most people, if you offer them, I can guarantee you become a millionaire in 20 years, or I'll give you a chance of becoming it in a year, right? Most people say, I'll just try the year, even though I can guarantee you it in 20 years. And they just don't have the patience, they just don't have the self-discipline, the consistency. And I always reflect upon this, that there's multiple ayat in the Quran that for Muslims mean that we have to have a higher standard. Like, for example, there's the ayah, it's talking about in the context of war, that إِن تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ فَإِنَّهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ كَمَا تَعْلَمُونَ. That if you're in pain and you're hurting, the Muslims, then know that they're also hurting the people you're fighting against, the disbelievers. Just as you're hurting, you're all human beings. You look at Elon Musk, the guy's working all day long. He gets tired just as you get tired. What's the difference between you and him? He's actually putting in the hours. But the next part of the ayah is the part I always reflect upon. وَتَرْجُونَ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَرْجُونَ. Yani you're expecting from Allah something they're not expecting. So you're expecting in a war to not give up. Doesn't matter if you're hurting as much as they're hurting or you're hurting more than them. You've got a higher purpose. You've got a higher driver behind what you're doing. The same applies to our entire lives, and you can also translate that to Arabic, and it applies to our Arabic studies. This guy goes and learns Chinese so he can get a job and earn more money. This girl over here goes and learns French so she can marry a French guy. This person goes and learns Arabic, right, so he can go marry an Arab girl, and he's a non-Muslim. And here you are with the Quran before you that you believe in is the word of your Lord and your Creator. And it's been sent to you. And you're telling me you don't have enough motivation and drive and the ability to go and learn Arabic to understand what it says. And these guys do. It's inconceivable. It's some of that I struggle to understand.
SubhanAllah.
So
no, absolutely.
Ultimately, for me, it's that kind of introspection and making sure that you actually have that in you. Once it's there, the rest of it, inshallah, becomes easy.
I would it's interesting that you mention discipline. Like it's absolutely something that all of the children of Adam should build in themselves, right? Something that it's a superpower if combined with consistency, something that we do regularly and keep up. But it's so like you mentioning consistency is really interesting, because in my life I think of discipline. I think of like discipline, but I almost think of it in some senses as like a last resort. like what's better than discipline in my mind is if you can make one decision where you no longer need discipline. So for example, like when I was living in the UK, I really needed to have discipline with learning Somali. Like I really needed to find the time in my day to like sit with books or practice with my mother-in-law or whatever. And it really like took up headspace for me because it was like, oh, I can't do this thing, or like I need to schedule it in and I need to think about how it works out. Or you can make a decision to move to Somalia. That's one decision where you don't need discipline anymore because it's just everywhere. Here, do you know what I mean? In some sense, like I'm not saying it didn't require discipline when you were in France, right? But like it would have been very difficult to rely on discipline to recreate your Arabic learning experience, but not in that environment, if you see what I mean. Like if for the amount of discipline you would have needed and the amount of headspace it would have taken up for you, if you wanted to manufacture that, not in that environment. So like, so to build on that, like discipline is absolutely something we should all have and all implement. Like, and for the vast majority of our audience, they're people not living in Arabic-speaking countries. The vast majority of the Arabic in 60 Steps audience, they're people in the USA, UK, Canada, right? So for them, it absolutely is the case. But if they have an opportunity to not have to have discipline, to make one decision, to change something in their environment, might it be whatever it is. I'm not saying you should take this decision flippantly, but maybe marry that Arab. Like, not, it shouldn't be that flippant, like just because you want to learn Arabic, right? But that's the kind of thing I mean. Like, you could tell yourself, well, I need to practice my lehga misriya every day, or I just marry this Egyptian person. Or you could say, like, okay, I need to schedule this and have real discipline for learning the Quran or whatever. Or I could just hire that teacher who's going to be strict with me and let them have the discipline. Do you know what I mean? I think
the point about discipline, just to
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So my point wasn't, discipline isn't the core thing it boils down to. It's what discipline is kind of the follow-on. For me, it comes down to that internal burning desire, you can call it. Right? ترجون من الله ما لا يرجون. You should, if you know deep inside that I want this thing and I've got a purpose behind it, I've got that burning desire, then all the discipline, the decisions, all of that follows. Because if you don't have that, you'll find any excuse not to do it. Like when I was in France, I know I speak very highly of the institute, I speak very highly of France and my experience there. But I can tell you now, that's not the average experience.
Okay.
There are students there who studied for 3 years and the Arabic is just as bad as mine was before I got there. There were students who had as much time as I had and they didn't put even a 10th of the time into studying. They were just on their laptops watching movies all day long. So all of it comes to, if you have that burning desire deep inside, knowing that, like, you have to actually be honest with yourself, do I actually want to learn Arabic? Now the answer should be yes, like for everybody. I don't think there's any scenario where somebody can say, you know what, I don't need Arabic. Just, you haven't been given that option, to be honest. Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyya, and we sent this as an Arabic Quran, not just as a Quran, as an Arabic Quran. So we've kind of been told that we need to learn Arabic, or we need to make an effort in order to access the Quran. In today's world, if we were talking about this 20 years ago, resources not available, you have a lot more excuses. But in a world today where somebody can go and learn Chinese and somebody can go and learn French, and people who think Arabic is difficult, I'm sure they'd agree that Mandarin probably seems even more difficult. But people have learned all these languages. And here are me and you struggling to build up the consistency and the desire and the motivation and to learn Arabic. Like, this is what I think we need to work on. If you can, once that light's kindled on the inside, the fire's kindled on the inside, then everything else inshallah falls into place.
Absolutely, yeah. Regardless of where you are, actually. Like I'm saying, I'm talking about making big decisions. If discipline is really a problem for you, but it wouldn't be a problem in the first place if it was something you truly understood the magnitude of. You know, absolutely. I think that's a really good place to finish. So on behalf of the Arabic in 60 Steps community, I want to say thank you so much for sparing your time for us. I know this has been kind of out there for a long time. I've had your number in my phone for quite a long time, and I've been trying to make it happen, and COVID happened. I kind of wanted us to do it in person when I was in the UK and it didn't work out, but thank you so much for having patience with me, and it was so good to finally get you on the podcast. So thank you so much, and I'll bid you farewell with in the best of ways with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.